290 million years ago, Meganeuropsis lived before birds existed, which sounds fake until you sit with it. If you were outside then, what was the top hunter in the air? Spoiler, it wasn't feathers. Quick pause. How does an insect take that job and keep it? You'll guess no competition, right? Don't lock it in. We're revealing why nothing about Meganeuropsis is normal and what it means for you now. First time you see that wingspan, your brain rejects it. 71 centimeters is the wingspan tied to Meganeuropsis permiana fossils from Kansas, and your brain instantly argues with it. You can picture a dragonfly, but can you picture one that spans a kitchen table? That disbelief is the hook, because size is the story here, and it only gets weirder. Those Wellington Formation specimens point to a body close to half a meter long, so the wings are not a trick of perspective. With that frame, even a tern would move much air. Half-meter body force is a question. What kind of world lets an insect build that muscle, still airborne? One geology write-up compares its wings to a crow or a small hawk and estimates a weight of 100 to 150 grams. That number matters because heavier flyers carry momentum. 100 to 150 grams means a close pass would feel like a thrown object, not a fragile bug right beside your head. A 2010 review on insect body size notes Paleozoic giants with wingspans exceeding 70 centimeters, several times bigger than living dragonflies. Biologist John Harrison pointed to these forms when discussing strange oxygen levels. Exceeding 70 centimeters turns a fossil fact into a sky problem that your modern lungs never had. So here's the real question you should hold on to. How did this thing lift, steer, and hunt without failing midair? The answer starts with timing. Meganeuropsis lived when birds were absent, which changes every rule. No birds yet means insects could take the top spot, and that gets wild. This thing hunted in the sky before birds even existed. Meganeuropsis lived around 290 million years ago in the early Permian, and that date should stop you. Your brain wants to compare it to hawks, but hawks come far later. When you place it in time, the sky suddenly feels empty. Who hunts up there when birds have not arrived? Birds appeared about 150 million years ago in the late Jurassic, so there is a gap over 100 million years where wings existed, but feathers did not. That gap matters because the predators you expect are gone. Late Jurassic birds are missing, so insects can rise to the top. The National Academies put it bluntly. Relatives of giant dragonflies in the late Carboniferous and early Permian were the largest insects in Earth's history. That is not a brag line. It is a food chain clue. Largest insects ever means small animals. Near water faced a predator they could not outfly. Meganeuropsis sat in the meganeurid group, built for hunting, and modern dragonflies already chase like fighter jets. Scale that behavior up, and the pressure on prey jumps. Meganeurid hunters also faced fewer rivals in the air, which can mean longer patrols and more time searching instead of hiding from flyers. If you were a small animal near a lake, a shadow overhead would signal danger, but it would not be a bird. That shift matters. No feathered threat means the insect takes the job. So what powered that job, and what kind of air made it possible for so long? The air it breathed was so weird, you wouldn't survive a minute. Oxygen in the late Carboniferous and early Permian likely rose above 30%, while today sits near 21%. That single shift changes everything for insects, because their breathing tubes rely on diffusion. Over 30% means more oxygen per breath can reach deeper tissues, letting bigger bodies function well. A review in Proceedings of the Royal Society B describes a Paleozoic oxygen pulse that likely climbed toward 35%, lining up with arthropod gigantism. That link matters because it suggests cause and effect. Richer air comes first, then body size follows. toward 35% gives insects room to grow. For an insect, more oxygen outside helps gas travel farther through tracheal tubes, so thick flight muscles can keep working. For you, the same mix would feel risky. High oxygen air speeds fire and can stress tissues. So dropping into that world is not a superpower, it is a hazard. National Geographic wrote that insects likely grew big because they benefited from a surplus of oxygen. That phrase matters, but the same piece also raised an idea. Young insects may have grown larger to avoid oxygen poisoning. Surplus of oxygen helps adults fly, yet it can pressure juveniles to change. So, the air sets the stage, rich enough for giant wings, harsh enough to change life history, and maybe the fire risk on land. That raises a question. If the sky was that open, how did a predator spot prey first? Long-range vision is where the story turns scary fast. Its eyes did not just see you, they mapped every tiny move you made. A 2018 Scientific Reports paper on meganeurid relatives described greatly enlarged compound eyes, built for long-distance vision above the animal in flight. That is a real design choice, not decoration. Enlarged compound eyes mean the hunter can spot movement early, then plan an intercept before prey reacts in open air. Compound eyes are made of many ommatidia, and more units can improve motion tracking. In a lake and swamp landscape, that matters because the view stays wide. Many ommatidia let the insect notice tiny cues, like a surface ripple or a flash of light, then keep tracking as the target turns away. The same Scientific Reports study links head and thorax shape to hawker behavior, like hawker dragonflies that patrol and chase instead of sitting still. That changes the risk profile. Hawker flight style means long search time, quick turns, and fewer moments for prey that hopes the hunter will get tired. Now imagine you're near the waterline and you move your hand once, the surface breaks, the reflection shifts, and that shift becomes data. Surface ripple cue is enough for a long-range eye system to lock onto your path. Once tracking starts, the insect only needs a clean closing move. That closing move has two parts: grab and cut, and eyes only matter if the mouth ends it fast. Fossils describe mandibles with acute teeth and leg spines that hold prey in flight. Sturdy mandibles change everything, because once they clamp, escape odds drop. Ready to scale them up now? The jaws look small in fossils, until you scale them to your arm. In 2018, Scientific Reports described griffinly mandibles as sturdy with acute teeth, and that quote should change how you read a flat fossil photo. Acute teeth in a large flyer means the bite is a tool, built for fast damage, not gentle nibbling on plants, or decay when prey fights back. That same study notes strong spines on the leg segments, used to hold prey. So, picture the sequence. Legs grab first, spines keep a grip, jaws follow. Leg spines grip turns the body into a flying trap, and the prey has to solve that trap while still in the air. On stone, the jaw looks like a tiny curve, because your brain anchors scales to the slab, not the animal. But the wingspan sat above 70 centimeters, so the head parts scale too. Scale shift moment is when you realize a small mandible could span a chunk of your forearm. A fossil insect guide calls meganeurids top predators, likely taking other insects and small vertebrates. That matters because it tells you the jaw job, pierce, crush, tear, then move on. Top predator role also means selection pressure for speed, since prey that survives learns to dodge and slow hunters starve. Here's the part that keeps scientists busy. Jaws and eyes explain hunting, but they do not explain flight. A large insect must lift mass, push air, and still turn fast. An airborne math problem appears here, because if lift fails, the predator falls. So did it glide or power on? Scientists still argue if it glided like a ghost or powered through air. One journal of experimental biology analysis estimated simple tracheal airflow could supply only about 5% of the oxygen needed for flight in a giant dragonfly model. 5% supply is a problem because it means normal breathing alone cannot pay the energy bill once the wings start working hard. To make the numbers work, researchers have to add extra airflow tricks, like stronger pumping or better ventilation during wing beats. That is where the debate opens. Ventilation during wing beats could support powered flight, but if the animal lacked that edge, gliding in short bursts start to look more realistic today. A 2024 flight scaling study that examined Meganeuropsis permiana concluded induced power scaling alone cannot explain griffin flight performance. That quote matters because it blocks the simple, denser air story. Alone cannot explain pushes attention toward wing kinematics, meaning how each stroke twists, cups, and sheds vortices for takeoff and turns. Here is the part for physics. The animal sits close to a limit, so small shifts change the outcome. Lower oxygen, thinner air, or heavier body could cut performance fast. Close to limits means there is little slack, so a strong flyer can become a stalling flyer with minor change. So glide or power, either way, the adult had to manage energy and oxygen with a little room for mistakes. That leads to a question people skip. How does a creature like this grow up? Juvenile stage clues come from dragonflies because the young live underwater, and life gets harsher there. The way it grew up as a baby hunter is way darker than you expect. Biologists link Paleozoic insect gigantism to aquatic juvenile stages dealing with oxygen swings in water, and griffin flies likely followed the same dragonfly-style life cycle. Aquatic juvenile stages matter because water can trap you, so a young hunter must solve breathing and hunting at the same time, with no escape route. A 2011 analysis by Verberg and Bilton, discussed in an insect physiology write-up, argues oxygen limits at temperature extremes helped drive size changes in aquatic insects. Temperature extremes matter because warm water holds less oxygen. So, a nymph can face a supply crunch right when its body demands more energy. National Geographic highlighted an idea that insects in high oxygen times may have grown larger to avoid oxygen poisoning. That line matters because it turns growth into a defense. Oxygen poisoning risk suggests the nymph is balancing too much oxygen in tissues while needing enough oxygen to fuel movement and hunting. So the problem stacks up. The nymph has to hunt underwater, compete with predators, and survive swings in oxygen and temperature, all before it meets open air. Underwater hunter life means the body must build armor, muscle, and capacity at once, which increases food needs and risk from day one. By the time it leaves the water and reaches the air, you're looking at a survivor of chemistry rules, not a lucky bug. That sets up a question. What ended the giant insect run? The extinction puzzle starts with oxygen dropping, but the story breaks, and that break matters for everything. Its extinction is not a simple climate story, and that is the problem. Robert Dudley argued in Journal of Experimental Biology that Paleozoic insect gigantism fits an oxygen peak near 35%, and that later hypoxia pushed sizes down. Oxygen peak near 35 sounds like an answer, and it explains a lot, but it does not explain what happens when oxygen rises again. Discover magazine summed up that first layer by saying as oxygen fell after the Permian high, the insects shrank. That quote works for the part of the timeline because insect breathing depends on diffusion. Insects shrink fits the idea that lower oxygen cuts the body size the tubes can support. In 2012, Matthew Clapham and colleagues found a twist. Around 150 million years ago, oxygen rose again, yet insect maximum size did not rise with it. Clapham wrote, size tracked oxygen for about 200 million years. Then the pattern stopped when birds evolved. Pattern stopped is the key phrase there. That result changes the story from air chemistry decides to air chemistry plus enemies decide. Once birds take the skies, a large insect becomes a louder target and an easier meal. Bird arrival pressure can keep size down even when oxygen rises. because survival now depends on avoiding vertebrate flyers. So Meganeuropsis sits in a sweet spot: high oxygen, few aerial rivals, and no birds to hunt it. Change either factor, and the design loses its edge. Design on a knife leads to a question: what part of the body makes this so fragile that one change can break physics? One wrong detail in its body plan basically breaks our physics textbook. A 2007 study used synchrotron X-rays to watch insect tracheal tubes pulse and compress in living animals, showing breathing is part diffusion and part active pumping. Synchrotron X-rays matter here because they reveal a hard limit. Oxygen has to travel through air-filled tubes without blood to carry it farther inside. Here's the scaling trap. Make the body thicker, and oxygen must cross distances to reach flight muscles, yet the delivery system stays a tube network. Thicker body cost rises faster than you expect, because diffusion slows with distance, and pumping can only help so much before energy costs climb. That is why an engineering analysis of giant dragonfly relatives estimated that normal airflow through spiracles, even in 30% oxygen, could meet only a small slice of flight demand. Small slice supply means flight depends on extra tricks, like wing strokes or stronger ventilation, with little margin for error. John Harrison's review work calls giant Paleozoic insects diffusion limited, and that phrase is blunt for a reason. Diffusion limited label means you cannot scale the body forever, because the oxygen delivery system hits a ceiling. When oxygen levels fall or predators rise, the ceiling drops, and giants vanish from the skies fast. So the weirdest part is not the fossil, it is how close the design lived to failure. Change tube size, a wing stroke, or the air mix, and flight can collapse. The failure margin stays tiny. Imagine it passing your face, and tell me your bug label survives after that moment. And once you picture this thing buzzing past your face, normal insects feel fake. Geology summaries give Meganeuropsis a wingspan around 71 to 75 centimeters, and that range makes the close-up image hard to shake. 71 to 75 is bird territory, so when it beats past your face, the air push would feel like a real object moving, not a light summer insect nearby. Some write-ups estimate mass up to 150 grams, which is in the ballpark of a bird. Up to 150 matters because momentum scales with weight, so the sound and pressure wave would change your reaction. You would flinch first and think second, because that is how humans handle fast threats. Science posts show reconstructions and point to Kansas fossils as proof, often calling Meganeuropsis the largest known flying insect. Largest known label is useful, but it invites criticism, because known depends on what fossils have been found and named. So the Kansas wings confirm size for a real flyer today. If someone tried to drop Meganeuropsis into today's 21% oxygen, many researchers think it would struggle to fly or breathe at that scale, based on diffusion limits and margins. 21% oxygen becomes a cage. The idea is simple. The body plan borrowed power from a sky with oxygen. So when you see a dragonfly, you're seeing a survivor that fits a new deal. Less oxygen and birds overhead. That deal keeps insects smaller and keeps you safer. Modern bug truce feels normal, until you remember it is a truce. Ready to look at your air differently now? So yeah, nothing about Meganeuropsis feels normal once you follow the facts. If your brain still argues with the numbers, good. Tap the next video and keep pulling that thread.